wasn't myself. And it was tough, but I was able to overcome that because I found myself, and I really ended up wanting to be the best version of myself. But still, till this day, right, the most difficult addiction has been pornography and porn usage. And I'm talking about this today to bring light to it because it's such a taboo topic for a lot of men to talk about, right? Like, oftentimes with our boys, with our bros, with the homies, right? We don't talk about this. We talk about the simple things, the things that don't have much substance and depth to it. We might talk about the basketball game. We might talk about gadgets or cars or clothes or shoes. You know, and if we're lucky enough, we find some friends that are a little bit more deep in the game. We talk about finances, or we talk about making moves. But never do we talk about the struggle, the internal struggle of addiction, and never do we even go one step further and talk about the taboo addictions such as sex, pornography, and everything that comes with it, the baggage that comes with that. And as someone that has struggled with it and still is struggling with it and know that it is a pervasive thing in today's society, I want to take this time to make this piece of content to talk to that, shed light on it. And I know that there are videos out there that talk about NoFap or, you know, the harmful effects of pornography, right? Huberman has done stuff on it, Chris Williamson, all your big podcasters have talked about it, yes. But they talk about it from the standpoint of demonizing it, but not from a standpoint of overcoming it. But obviously I know where they're coming from. They're bringing awareness to it, and that's great. But what I want to be the champion of is talking about the topic not a taboo thing, right? I want to champion men to feel courageous enough to talk about this. I want to let this be a lesson to my son that we can overcome anything. That even if you get caught up in this, there's always a way out. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Because they've designed it to be so addictive, so accessible, and they've made it free to consume. And all of that adds to the dangerous mix and cocktail of it being how addictive it is. And because it's so addictive, it affects everyone that touches it, whether you know it or not, whether you admit it or not. And it's scary because 70 to 80% of men have used or are currently using it. And 1 in 3 women, 30% of women, are doing the same. And that's a staggering statistic, and that number is even more so larger when we talk about the younger demographic. And what is more alarming is that it is affecting people at a younger and younger age. Their first exposure happens at a younger and younger age. And that's partly down to us as parents. But I'm not shaming the parents, I'm just bringing it to their attention. It is not something that should be looked at lightly, because these addictions have grave consequences. We have to understand that it was designed to be extremely addicting. It is a perfect formula to hook men, boys. It is working. Cater directly to our psychology. They are waging war on our attention, and we are paying for it. Even though it's free, we are paying for it with our soul, with our spirit, with our subconscious. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly why they haven't monetized it and put like spending, like paywalls for it. Because they know the free stuff keeps you coming back for more and more and more. And what starts as a innocent discovery ends up being a lifelong addiction. So, firstly, it is dangerous and addicting because it's so easily accessible. It is free. We can access it on any of our devices. It is normalized in society. It is normalized in music and movies. It is normalized in our social media platforms. It is normalized in the sense that our politicians are doing absolutely nothing to protect us from it. And because of that, because of how accessible it is, it then damages the users. And while we may not be aware of it, it is creating our realities. Because when we are seeking out and getting our dopamine hits from shame and guilty feeling, we are operating at a low frequency. We are operating out of shame and guilt and anger and lack. And when we operate from those lower levels of consciousness, we attract in our lives lower levels of consciousness. Because how we feel and how we believe and how we emit in terms of energy and frequency, we attract like for like. And you notice this. You may not explicitly be able to understand the reasons as to why, but you notice the subtle signs. You'll notice when a man can command respect because he has energy and he has aura about him. And likewise, you can tell from the opposite. When someone walks into the room and they suck all the energy out. You know, there are men that can stand out amongst the boys, and you can tell who doesn't fit in a room full of alphas. And I'm not talking about the toxic masculinity or, you know, who has the bigger muscles, right? There's energy about the person. And when you're a consistent, constant user, it shows. It shows on your face. It shows on your energy. It shows in your eyes. It shows in your confidence. But one step further than that, right? If you're a consistent user and you're always at that lower frequency of energy and you're attracting that, you'll notice that your interactions with your coworkers or your bosses are negative. You'll feel like you're not advancing at your career place because people look down on you. And then in the dating pool, women aren't attracted to you. But then you just end up, you know, blaming it on whatever the flavor of the week is. But this is the reality that you're creating for yourself. You'll feel that the people at the gym or, you know, the people that you play sports with don't respect you and that they're always trying to pick fights with you. And that just becomes your reality. So you're creating your own reality by your habits and your behaviors based on your addictions. But when your addictions bring you to this low level of frequency, it becomes dangerous because then you're creating your life with it. And then when you tie that onto the way the society is currently right now, with the divisiveness with politics and racial tension and whatever the flavor of the week is, right? Like, when that becomes intertwined into the mix, it is so easy to find why people are so anxious, why people are so hateful, and why people are so spiteful towards each other. And we're creating this society unknowingly, based on our actions, based on our beliefs, based on our thought patterns, based on the energy that we are emitting. And this all starts back with pornography. It's crazy when you look at it that way, but it's dangerous. You know, so I'm not making this video just to demonize it and, you know, make you fearful of it, right? Like, it's something I struggled with and something I still struggle with it today. And I want to bring to light certain things that have helped me along the way and talk about my story, right? Just like every other young boy out there, I stumbled upon it back in my day. It was just, you know, the wild, wild west of internet. We had those AOL dial-up internet, and, you know, it was just an unmoderated frontier, brimming with content, things that we've never seen before because obviously, like, we were never exposed to it, right? So I stumbled upon it, you know, I was barely a teenager, prepubescent, mind still developing, and I stumbled upon it and I was, wow, you know, boobies, titties, ass. I was mesmerized, just like any other boy would be, right? And, you know, I found different ways to get more access to the internet and find more. That transcended into college and my livelihood there. Like I was in a fraternity and I was going out and partying, and obviously I had my sexual encounters, and I found the highs of having those sexual encounters. But then there were days where I would go out for a party or have drinks with some girls, and they wouldn't end up with any. I wouldn't end up with what I was seeking out, and then I used the crutch of pornography as kind of the fallback plan. But in terms of that, I was just using it as a emotional coping mechanism for the sense of failure that I felt that day, that night, and that became like an emotional crutch for me. And that happened often, frequently, week after week, right? On days I went out, days I went out to parties, and it came home empty-handed, right? Like these things compounded over and over and over, and became like ingrained in my subconscious. And even though it never, became something as bad as, the people that talk about having those porn addictions where they're fapping it and wanking it like 4 or 5 times a day, it never got that bad, but it didn't need to get that bad for me to realize that it was a problem. I never faced any of the health effects that, a lot of researchers and physicians and neuroscientists have talked about recently, like the porn-induced erectile dysfunction. I never faced any of those things, but I didn't need to realize that I had a problem. I found myself coping with a long day of work or a stressful day at work. Or I found myself, wanting to feel a release of stress, from some sort of conflict, whether it's conflict with roommates and friends or conflicts with my partner. I wanted to look for certain excuses just to divulge into this. And it became a bad habit, right? But it was a long-standing habit, and it happened over like, a decade. And lo and behold, you're in your mid-20s, early 30s, and you've just been building and living with this habit unknowingly, having it dictate your life. Keying back on what we talked about in the last episode, it starts with awareness. And when we have the awareness, that's the only time then we can start being honest with ourselves, then optimizing and becoming better. Because if we're not aware of it, if we're just unconscious to the fact of it, then it's something that we're just going to sleepwalk through life and just continue doing. But once I had the awareness that it was a problem, that it isn't, just a thing that everyone does and is normal, I was able to implement things in my life to help me combat it. And so it starts with awareness. It is the awareness that it is a problem, because without the awareness, it is so easy to believe that it's normal, right? How many of you guys have heard the saying that, like, oh yeah, rubbing one out is healthy for your nuts? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's good to drain the main vein, right? Like, it helps alleviate or lower the risk of testicular cancer because you clear it out, right? Like, there's that saying where, like, to normalize it. So I felt like it was just normal, a normal thing that men do, because we don't talk about this, right? But as society has grown in terms of technology and accessibility and social media platforms and just hypersexualizing everything, I realized that this just wasn't normal, right? So it starts with the awareness and then having the intention. I had the intention, and I still have the intention, and I'm still talking about it today, right? To overcome it. And I talk about it like I'm a champion of it, as if I've already done it. And that's the next thing I want to talk about. You can't talk about it as if you're a victim of it and that it is something so vice-like in your life that you can't overcome it. You have to talk about it as if you've already overcome it, and that you can believe and see and feel as if you have already conquered it. That's a key thing that I want to talk about. I want men to talk as if they have overcome the beast, that they have defeated the devil, that you have that belief within you. Because if you don't, then it's a losing battle. Because if you don't, you're not going to even try. You're going to accept your fate. You're going to accept that it's normal, and you can continue doing whatever you're doing. And that's just not me. I talk about it as if I've already done it. So that's point number 2 that, I implement in my life. There's a lot of resources out there. So point number 3 is getting your resources in line to help you learn more about it. For me, it was this book called The Easy Peasy Method. I'll leave a link down below. This book was just kind of a framework and a plan to help you get structured into attacking this head on. So framework is crucial. Develop your framework, get resources to help you. And then the next thing, point number 4 for me, was having a journal, having systems in place that help you regulate and be aware of your emotions, and having systems in place to kind of safe rail your day, right? Like safeguard your day. With journaling, I set out to write about what my day will entail of. And because of that, it's structured, it is premeditated. I'm not going off the rails and doing whatever. And it keeps me on track and focused. And then I talk about how I'm going to overcome these temptations. And I write about it early in the morning. And that really ingrains into my subconscious the things that I'm going to be fighting beforehand. And then I recap at the end of the night. I use an app called I Am Sober. I'm not affiliated with them in any form or fashion. I just use them because I feel like it helps gamify and make the process of breaking a habit a little bit more fun. So I'll leave a link or a screenshot of that too. They do a little like motivational quotes, and they keep score of the streak, and they kind of create that dopamine of, you know, getting rid of a habit. And then I put safeguards in place for myself. So I have content filtering on my Mac devices. And then I do some Wi-Fi settings and firewall settings with my Wi-Fi settings, or my Wi-Fi router, to protect myself from adult content. So I put safeguards in place, so kind of as a fail-safe when I'm weak or my temptations are too strong, right? Like I have these safeguards in place so that the effort level that it takes to access it isn't worth the, you know, isn't worth it, right? So I put safeguards in place. That's point number 5. And I think the final point that helped me a lot and still is something that I rely on and something that I want to champion is having a collective group of men in your life, in your circle, that really uplift you and you uplift them, and that energy that you keep around you help elevate you. For me, I have a few close friends, a few, you know, old acquaintances and new friends found along the way in life. And we all get together, whether it's physically or just online in a group chat, and we talk about it, right? We talk about our vices, we talk about the things that we're doing to become better, the things that help us. And it's that energy that really uplifts us rather than just the mundane normalcy in your group chat, right? Like keeping a circle of winners really pushes you to be better physically, mentally, spiritually, and it allows you to have support, because as men it's so easy to suffer in silence, and the stigma of a strong man is one that doesn't really divulge his emotions and feelings, but I feel like that backfires when you're struggling against something that is so addictive and so dangerous, that is so silent, that is so taboo, right? You need people to understand and help you. And there needs to be awareness on the subject, or else it's a losing battle. But I want to touch on that. It is not a losing battle. It never is a losing battle as long as you have God on your side. And one of the key things that I want to emphasize is if you're able to visualize yourself as successful in this endeavor, if you're able to ask God for the strength day in and day out, if you're able to believe and feel as if you are already free from it, it may seem hard in the moment. It may seem hard on some days. It may feel like we're going through the fire and that the storm hasn't passed. But just know that you get back up again and you continue to believe, you continue to fight. How can you fail? Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. If you haven't already hit the like and subscribe button, please do so. Until the next video, guys, I appreciate your time. Peace out.